Rachel Reeves's comments and the Labor school uniform policy controversy. The Labor Party's proposed policy on school uniforms has ignited a fierce debate, with critics pointing to comments made by Chancellor Rachel Reeves in 2022 as evidence of contradictions within the party's stance. The proposed changes, spearheaded by Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson, aim to cap the number of branded uniform and PE kit items to 3 per pupil, purportedly to ease financial pressure on families struggling with the cost of living. However, opposition figures, campaigners, and education professionals have raised concerns that such measures could inadvertently exacerbate inequalities rather than alleviate them. Labor's uniform policy, an overview. Labor's education policy includes provisions designed to reduce the financial burden on parents when purchasing school uniforms. The central proposal limits the number of branded uniform items that schools can mandate to 3, theoretically allowing parents to buy more affordable, unbranded alternatives from supermarkets and generic retailers rather than being forced to purchase expensive, school-specific garments. Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, has argued that this policy is essential for families who struggle with the cost of compulsory branded items. The premise is that reducing the number of required branded pieces will give parents greater flexibility in sourcing cheaper alternatives, making it easier for them to afford school uniforms. However, concerns have been raised that this policy could have unintended consequences, undermining some of the benefits that school uniforms are traditionally believed to provide. Rachel Reeves's 2022 remarks, a contradiction? The controversy intensified when remarks made by Rachel Reeves in 2022 resurfaced. During a visit to a school in her constituency, Reeves reportedly told the Observer newspaper, "You look at the kids and you just think, I know you are poor. You can see it in the school coats, especially in the winter, and in the school shoes. Kids not wearing the proper school uniform, sort of a bit mix and match, and it is really sad." These comments, critics argue, directly contradict Labor's rationale for limiting branded school uniforms. Reeves's remarks acknowledge that visible markers of poverty among school children, such as inconsistent or incomplete uniforms, are already an issue. Opponents of the policy claim that reducing the uniform requirements will only make this problem worse, as students from lower-income families will be more visibly distinguishable from their wealthier peers. Matthew Easter, chairman of the Schoolwear Association, has argued that these remarks indicate that Labor politicians themselves understand the risks involved in reducing uniform standards. He stated, "The government's arbitrary cap on the number of branded uniform items will result in more pupils not wearing proper uniform and have significant adverse effects on pupils, undermining the welfare and attainment benefits that uniform is there to preserve." Criticism and concerns from educators and politicians. Several key arguments have been made against the proposed policy. Critics, including conservative MPs and school leaders, argue that school uniforms serve as a social equalizer by preventing children from being judged based on their clothing. By enforcing a standardized dress code, uniforms help mask economic disparities and ensure that children from lower-income backgrounds do not feel singled out. Neil O'Brien, the conservative shadow schools minister, has been vocal in his criticism, stating, "Labor's micromanagement is set to backfire. What is likely to happen is that parents will end up replacing school uniform PE kit with more expensive sportswear, and it will cost them more." This argument suggests that instead of relieving financial pressure, Labor's policy could have the unintended effect of encouraging students to wear non-branded alternatives that are actually more expensive. This could include designer sportswear, which many teenagers prefer, and which would ultimately exacerbate the financial burden on parents. Furthermore, recent polling among school leaders, as reported by the Daily Express, highlights several concerns. School. Absences increase on non-uniform days. The data suggests that school attendance drops by 30% on days when uniforms are not required, indicating that students feel increased anxiety about choosing the right clothing. Branded uniforms reduce visible inequalities. 88% of surveyed school leaders agreed that requiring branded uniforms helps mitigate social divides. Uniforms improve student behavior and academic performance. 78% of respondents reported that school-specific attire contributes positively to discipline and educational outcomes. These statistics support the argument that Labor's policy could have detrimental effects on students' well-being and academic performance. What's up? Welcome to the GMB channel. Hope you will enjoy our video. Before we begin, hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Here is the news title. Rachel Reeves accidentally admitted big problem with one key. Labor policy exclusive. Rachel Reeves has been accused of admitting a major problem with one of Labor's key education policies in 2022. Rachel Reeves has been accused of letting the cat out of the bag amid criticism of Labor's planned changes to school uniforms. Labor wants to bring in new legislation, limiting the number of branded items a school can request parents buy for their children. Bridget Phillipson plans to limit the amount of both branded uniform and PE kits to just 3 items, which she insists is a measure that will help hard up parents with the cost of living. However, she's facing major warnings that the policy will have dire side effects, including stigmatizing poorer pupils. Critics of the plan argue that school uniforms level wealth inequalities by allowing less well-off pupils to look the same as their wealthier peers. Campaigners against the policy now claim they have unearthed comments from Chancellor Rachel Reeves which make this exact argument and undermine the claims from the Education Secretary. In 2022, the then shadowed Chancellor to the Observer newspaper while visiting a school in her constituency. You look at the kids and you just think, I know you are poor. You can see it in the school coats, especially in the winter, and in the school shoes. Kids not wearing the proper school uniform, sort of a bit mix and match, and it is really sad. Campaigner and chairman of the Schoolwear Association, Matthew Easter, told the Express this shows that the Chancellor knows we're right. The government's arbitrary cap on the number of branded uniform items will result in more pupils not wearing proper uniform and have significant adverse effects on pupils, undermining the welfare and attainment benefits that uniform is there to preserve. Schools work hard to understand what works best for their community, and the Education Secretary should be supporting them to cater for their most disadvantaged pupils, not imposing excessive bureaucratic measures that will reduce education standards and inadvertently increase costs. Conservative Shadow Schools Minister Neil O'Brien told the Express, Labor's micromanagement is set to backfire. What is likely to happen is that parents will end up replacing school uniform PE kit with more expensive sportswear, and it will cost them more. As even Labor ministers have acknowledged, school uniform is a social leveler, and when you take it away, it actually highlights the differences between children. And that in turn creates pressure on parents to spend more getting them branded goods. Last week, the Daily Express also revealed polling that suggests school leaders believe the move by Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson will have a damaging effect on pupils' mental health. Shocking research reveals that school absences rise by a whopping third on non-uniform days, suggesting children face such anxiety about picking the right clothes that they'd rather stay at home. The survey also found that 88% of school leaders say branded uniform items reduce visible inequalities, preventing a divide opening up between pupils wearing fashionable branded sports kids and those whose parents can only afford supermarket basics during PE. In addition, 78% of school leaders report that school-specific items improve behavior and academic performance in the classroom. A Treasury source insisted, the Chancellor's position is consistent with the school uniform policy. Labor voters admit buyer's remorse as support collapses after Rachel Reeves' catastrophe confidence in Chancellor. Rachel Reeves has plummeted as wealthy voters think they've made a mistake, ultra-wealthy Labor supporters admit. Voters' remorse after Rachel Reeves' policies collapsed their confidence in the economy. 2/3 of wealthy individuals with investable assets over $250,000 now regret their decision voting for Labor, according to a survey by wealth manager Saltus. Their confidence in the economy plummeted from 84% in August to just 48% today, according to the poll of 2,000 high net worth individuals. Despite Labor's promise to not raise key taxes, Rachel Reeves' decision to increase employer national insurance contributions which directly impacts business owners, and add 20% VAT to private school fees, obliterated confidence. Keir Starmer repeatedly promised to focus on economic growth. During his election campaign, however, a partner at Saltus, Mike Stimpson, said the ultra-wealthy believe the economy isn't on track. Stimpson said, "The extent to which the confidence of high-net-worth individuals has collapsed demonstrates a missed opportunity for the new government, who had high levels of support when they came to power and drove the highest levels of HNWI confidence in the UK economy we have ever recorded." Confidence is a critical component in growth, and the fact that this vitally important group of people, the wealth creators, employers, and investors in the businesses of tomorrow, feel that the UK economy is not on the right track is a cause for concern. He believes the ultra-wealthy backed Labour in protest of key Conservative failures, including Liz Truss's infamous period as PM. Due to the disillusionment, Saltus's poll revealed 1 in 10 are thinking about leaving the UK, which raises questions about business opportunities and growth, as well as income tax earnings, of which 30% is paid for by the top 1% of earners. Last year, 10,800 millionaires moved overseas. According to the Adam Smith Institute, more than double 2023's exodus. In response, Rachel Reeves reversed promises to crack down on high earners using non-dom tax status to avoid paying tax in the UK. She told the Wall Street Journal, "We have been listening to the concerns that have been raised by the non-dom community, and in the finance bill, we will be tabling an amendment which makes more generous the temporary repatriation facility, which enables non-doms to bring money into the UK without paying significant taxes." A Treasury spokesperson said, "At the AR budget, we made the difficult decisions needed on tax to fix the foundations and increase investment in public services and the economy, to rebuild Britain and unlock long-term growth."